definitely want to talk about another thing that you do in the book that I found, and I don't know how on purpose this was, but uh, in my gajillion trips to New York City and in any major metropolitan area I've been in, and anywhere on the globe, they're densely packed areas. But when you live in one of these cities and you're trying to quote unquote make it, whatever make it is, like you said, it is a very relative term, a very relative term. Um, you can feel so alone. Even living here in Mexico, which I think is a very welcoming culture for all intents and purposes,
Mhm.
because I don't speak the language all that well. I'm visibly an outsider. Um, there is an alienating feeling. I mean, here I am doing a podcast and in the middle of a mall, and it's just like nobody gives a shit. There's something isolating about living in a big city, the
Mhm.
struggle to
Yeah.
survive trying to live in a big city and try to do your art. And I think you encapsulate that very well in the dancer and the musician, the aspiring musician. The
Mhm.
dancer to me feels like a character that has kind of got it figured out, in the sense of I can dance and do my thing, and I do this thing that's probably I'm never going to really make it, whatever that is, but I'm going to work these crazy jobs, do the dance thing, but I can do whatever I want to do dance wise. I'm going to live this bohemian lifestyle because that's what I got out of that character. They were the more
Mm.
wild person in the book. Like, hey,
Yes.
let's fucking go to the artist's house, have a threesome. They didn't.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Alex, the street dancer, yes,
Yeah.
seems to be the only character who has, well, who knows how to have a good time, for one, but who, yeah, seems to have an angle on it. And of course, Alex is a native from the Bronx.
Yeah, the Bronx. Yeah.
She says, I mean, it's a little mysterious. We don't get much of a backstory with Alex like we do with the painter or we do with
Yeah.
Isabel, where at the end of the first chapter, we have a flashback of her childhood, and we realize that she's, her mother was snatched away from her when she was, what, 5 years old?
That
One
was
day there's a
rough.
knock on the door. The mother is from
Oh,
Tijuana, there,
that's
Mexico, where
what
you are.
I do have to add this. I'm reading this book after the election, and
Ooh.
yeah, and walking across the border is not as bad as it was a few years ago when there would be large families of mostly like Guatemalan refugees. They're just stuck. And they would tell you as you were walking through, okay, if you're trying to wait for your asylum, you stand over here. If you're just coming back to the States, you go this way. Da, da, da. Now that's all gone. It's
Mm.
been gone for a while, right? The Biden
Mm.
administration kind of ixnayed that.
Mhm.
Um, and I do have a fear, we're probably going to do a show about this next week, uh, of how hard this administration wants to take deportation. And most of my friends here are deportees. So that one hit really close to home. And to paint the picture, not from the perspective of the deported, but of the people they left behind, I thought
Mm.
that was really interesting. Are you the child of a deportee? Because that was pretty
Yes.
accurate.
Well, and we know where any big city, people who are here illegally. If you even accept that term,
Mm-hmm.
like how could a person be illegal?
Yeah.
It's almost a contradiction in terms, or it's almost a non sequitur. But it's definitely a easy to scapegoat people who don't have all of their papers in order,
Yes.
right? It's this hysteria that's sweeping not just the U.S. but throughout Europe, and a lot of people are getting on the bandwagon. And I was really disturbed to learn that almost half of Latino men in the U.S. voted Republican, voted for Trump just now,
Yeah.
after everything he's saying and all the millions of people who look just like they do, who he plans to deport in these coming months. And yet, well, it's complex. There's the slam the door behind you syndrome. Part of it is that. There's the machismo element of it. And then there's also the naked fact that the Democrats weren't offering much of an alternative, or
Yeah.
that is, they were failing to articulate much of a compelling reason why you should go for them. But back to this issue of deportation and being an undocumented immigrant and illegal. This is kind of the secret theme of Naked City. This is probably the most painful detail in an otherwise humorous story. I'm calling it a comedy,
Okay.
even if it's maybe more accurately a tragic comedy. Isabel's story is pretty serious. The painter who she meets and she gets a job working for him. She's so desperate to make rent money that she becomes his nude model. This is before she becomes successful as a musician. But the painter who she meets he's kind of a goofball. I mean, he's the comic relief in the story. I made sure that the story that deals with these serious subject and contemporary themes, that it would have enough laughs in it every other page to keep you wanting to turn the pages. But Isabel, she hitchhikes to the big city, right? She hitchhikes from Detroit, comes to New York, and we don't learn until the very end of the first chapter that she's not just coming to the city to be make it as a singer-songwriter. She's running away from something. And she's specifically running away because she doesn't know if she's legal or not. Her mother was deported when she was a kid. She doesn't have her birth certificate. She thinks she was born in the U.S. Her father always told her she was born in the U.S. She was probably born here, but she doesn't know that for certain. And of course, the latest news that we're just getting this past week is that the president has announced that he's ending birthright citizenship.
He's trying. Yeah, it got stopped already.
Yes, easier said than done. But that's something that we've had in the U.S. since right after the Civil War. We've had that. You know, where we treat our immigrants terribly and we use them, exploit them for their cheap labor. But if you're born in the U.S., then you're in like Flynn. It's one of the things that the U.S. is doing correctly. A lot of European countries don't have that. Like if you're in Germany, if you're a Turk in Germany and your grandparents were living there in the 50s and you were born there and your parents were born there, you're not considered you still don't have full German citizenship. And we're not talking about Nazi Germany. We're talking about democratic Germany as it is now, which is ironically one of the last bastions of liberal democracy. Germany of all places. So this is a theme that I'm trying to kind of weave into the story in a very subtle way. That Isabel, even when she's becoming successful and then making money as a musician, she could never really relax and enjoy it. She always has to look over her shoulder and see, are they coming after her? Are the police or the ICE police or the immigration or Homeland Defense?